What's up, everybody? My name's Chris, and today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a reading wrap up for September, and then I'll get into a little bit of what I plan on reading in October or what I want to read in October. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So a book that I had started in August, I'm going to school right now, so I had a little break in between my summer and my fall semester. And I started the Silver Blood Promise by James Logan. And I had heard about this from, I think Petriglio was the first place, his YouTube channel was the first place I heard about it. I think he said it was like one of his favorite debut fantasy novels of the year. This is James Logan's first published novel. And this book was a lot of fun. I had when my fall semester started again, I got kind of overwhelmed with school and work and stuff, but just recently I got back into it and was able to finish the last few chapters. But this was an amazing, really fun, sort of like roguish thief, criminal underworld kind of fantasy book. Just a quick summary, it's about this guy, Lucan Gardova. He's like a disgraced noble who's kind of in like self-imposed exile, kind of drinking and gambling his life away, even though I think he's in his early 20s. But he gets a message from someone from his childhood that his father has been murdered, and his father left behind like 3 words written in his own blood. And it's like, Lucan, my son, come solve my murder, basically. It's way cooler than that in the book. But so he's like, he was estranged from his dad and his family and his home city and everything, but he kind of, I think he sees this as a chance to like redeem himself and his relationship with his father, at least in his own eyes, because his dad's dead. But yeah, he goes to this city he's never been to, and it's called Sephrona. It's like this city where anything can be bought or sold, whether that's goods, people, information. And he starts investigating his dad's murder. And his dad was like there's like a ancient civilization with really advanced magic or magical technology that fell, and his dad was like obsessed with all that. So he kind of gets into investigating some of those secrets of that like ancient civilization, and he crosses paths with some like thieves in the city. He becomes sort of best buds with like this little thief girl who tries to pickpocket him, and they end up working together. It's a really fun relationship. And then other really cool people in that city. I don't need to get too much into it, but yeah, it's like if Han Solo was the main character in a fantasy book. It feels a little bit like Lies of Locke Lamora in terms of just like the fast-paced, fun, roguish adventure elements to it. The magic in the book is really cool. It's not like a hard magic system or anything, but there are relics from that ancient empire that he interacts with. And yeah, just a really fun start to a new series. The sequel I think he's working on right now, called The Blackfire Blade. Super cool title. Yeah, it has great titles. It's got a great, really fun main character to follow. It never gets too serious or too violent. But yeah, The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan was the only fantasy book that I finished in September. And yeah, like I mentioned, I'm going to school right now for like literature, or, well, English with a focus on creative writing, but I'm taking some literature classes. So reading some classical literature has taken up a lot of my reading time. Excuse me. And the main class I'm taking right now, in terms of that, is like a 19th century novel. Yeah, so in that class, the first book we've been focusing on is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Um, I had checked this book out from the library in my early 20s. I'm 33 now, whatever. And I got 100 or 200 pages in, and then it wasn't capturing my interest at the time. But I'm glad that this was assigned reading in the class because it gave me a chance to finish it. And I won't get into too much of Jane Eyre. I mean, it's been around forever, and I don't normally read classic literature, like Victorian literature, so it's not like going to be the main focus on my channel, but it is a really good book. It's a lot of these Victorian novels are surprisingly readable, like the language isn't too archaic or references are too obscure or anything. And I really like Jane as a main character. We've also been like watching some film adaptations. Anyway, we watched one from the 1940s. What's that guy's name? Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. Anyway, but then we also watched Rebecca, which is a Hitchcock adaptation of a book called Rebecca, but it's like an adaptation of Jane Eyre, kind of. And then I just finished Wide Sargasso Sea by, I think her name is Jean Rhys, might be how you pronounce it. But this kind of acts as sort of a prequel to Jane Eyre, and this was published in 1966. But the big kind of secret or plot twist in Jane Eyre is that Jane falls in love with this guy at his mansion. She's working for him, and it turns out he's got a secret first wife, like hidden in the attic or whatever. So spoilers for Victorian literature. But this book takes on the perspective of that first wife from her childhood, and she's like from the Caribbean, and so it's kind of like flips the novel on its head in terms of how it's approached to like colonialism or white European colonialism and how that affects people in the colonies. But yeah, this was, I mean, I love this book. This was amazing. I want to read more books by this author, but I won't get into too much of that right now because mainly I read fantasy, so I'm just going to talk about fantasy here. But this is what I've been reading because I'm going to school. And then that's, pretty much it for my classes. And then right at the end of September, I did pick up another fantasy book. This is one I've been meaning to read for a long time, and that is City of Miracles by Robert Jackson Bennett. It's the third and final book in his Divine Cities trilogy. And book 1, City of Stairs, and book 2, City of Blades, are two of my favorite fantasy books of all time. It's sort of like a John le Carré, sort of like spy, political intrigue kind of novel or series, and it's in this fantasy world. It's sort of like if there's a continent where gods like were present for centuries, that continent kind of colonized the rest of the world because they had the gods on their side. But then within the last generation or so, one of the colonies, Saipur, that's how I pronounce it, I don't know, found a way to actually kill the gods. So this like great general leader from that country, it's like a small island country, like led his forces into the continent and killed their gods. So in an instant, like their entire civilization, culture crumbled because the gods had like constructed so much of their civilization, and then now the continent has been colonized. So there's a lot of issues or themes of like colonization and how it affects religion, culture, the state of even like industry and education in the lands of the colonized. Because like their religion has been banned, even mention of their old gods has been banned. That's in the first book. So I would highly recommend City of Stairs is book 1 in this trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. But it had been a few years since I had read book 2, which was amazing. I'm not going to get into that too much. But City of Miracles returns to one of my favorite characters from the series. I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't picked up book 1 or book 2. But this one comes back to, I think most of it takes place in the city where book 1 takes place, called Bulakov. And it's kind of like the heart of the old empire continent, like the seat of the gods, I think it's called. So yeah, it's got great action, it's got great like spy thriller aspects to it. The writing is great. He writes this in present tense, so it's third person present tense, and it's got a few different perspectives so far. But that present tense, like, I've only read it a few other times in like fantastical genre literature, but it just like gives you like an immediacy and a realness to the world and the characters, because you're there with them and it's happening in the moment. So that's a cool aspect to this. I don't know how it ends, but this is one of my favorite fantasy authors, and I want to read more by him. I know I haven't read The Tainted Cup yet. I read book 1 in the Founders trilogy, Foundryside, and that was awesome, but I haven't read the rest of that trilogy. And he's got a whole back catalog of like horror, not specifically like fantasy with world building and stuff. He's got some old books I want to read. But yeah, this is amazing so far. I'm only 2 chapters in, but I'm trying to like squeeze in reading time between my classes and everything. So I'll read that at night. But yeah, City of Miracles, Robert Jackson Bennett. He's awesome. I want to read everything by him. And I'm loving it so far. So that's pretty much it for September. I had a weird September for different reasons, but I didn't get to read as much in my preferred genres as I normally do. But in October, I have a little bit more free time. I kind of pulled back from my day job a little bit for different reasons, so I have a little bit more free time. So there are a lot of series that I've been meaning to get back to that I've started, whether this year or in the last few years, that I haven't continued. And I really want to, especially starting up my channel again, I want to pick those series up and start finishing series. And probably the main one I want to continue in October. I haven't bought book 2 yet, but the book 1 of, well, I have book 1 right here, but the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I know some of my favorite people in the booktube community, like She Was Only Evie and Derry, and a lot of other people. This is their favorite fantasy series, I think, of all time, and Robin Hobb is their favorite author. But I have not picked up Royal Assassin yet. I plan on going to the bookstore in the next few days and picking that up. But I read Assassin's Apprentice earlier this year, and I loved it. I love her writing. I love the world. It feels like sort of like a classic fantasy. I don't know, did it start in the 80s or 90s? I don't know when it started, but there's so many books in this series, and I've heard so many good things about this author and these different trilogies. And I think it all takes place in one world. But I love the main character Fitz. I'm really emotionally attached to him. And since I read book 1 at the beginning of this year, I don't want to wait too long and kind of lose my sense of the events or the characters in that book. So I don't have it yet. I should have it soon. But Royal Assassin, as soon as I finish City of Miracles, I think I'm going to start Royal Assassin. And then another one, series that I've been loving this year, and one I plan to continue in October, is the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. And I've read the first 3. They're like novella length. They're all like under 200 pages, I think. And I have book 4, Exit Strategy. And this was like the surprise hit of the year for me. I had never read any Martha Wells books, But yeah, I talked about it a little bit in my last video. But I love the main character. I love the narrative voice. I love that, honestly, they're shorter and I can kind of read them in a few days or even one day in between things, and it's just fun sci-fi, but it has like emotional depth, even if it doesn't have a grand world building kind of depth to it. The main character is really, really interesting to me. They're like part human, part machine, basically, but yeah, they have like social anxiety and they're uncomfortable with humans, but they do feel an emotional connection to other living things or even other sentient, like AI, other robotic creatures in the world that it interacts with. So it's like just fun, fast-paced. It's got a good balance of action and like humor, which it's like one of the funnier books or series that I've read recently. So yeah, that one I'll probably read sometime in October, and then I'll just get the school thing out of the way, but when we're done in my class, when I'm done reading Jane Eyre and watching and reading other adaptations, the second big book of the semester is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I think I read this in 6th grade. I have no memory of it, really. I don't think I was really into this kind of literature at the time, but in the years since, I have read Tale of Two Cities, and I think I read a lot of David Copperfield in my early 20s. But yeah, it's been a long time since I read any Dickens, so we'll see how that goes. Great Expectations. And I think we'll be watching some movies and reading some adaptation kind of things in regard to that. But yeah, so beyond that, if I have any more time for reading, there are a few series that I want to continue soon. This is not any like hard and fast TBR, partly because that's probably the most I can manage in October, but I just figured I do want to mention a few series that I want to continue soon, and maybe I'll start them in October. And I'm cheating a little bit because I don't have, again, I'm going to do like a bookstore trip soon and buy a few of these, but I want to continue some series that I've started in the last couple years. And I started the Dandelion Dynasty, so I read The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu earlier this year, and like Assassin's Apprentice, Farseer, I want to continue with the series before too much time goes by. And I've heard great things about Wall of Storms. So that's what I want to get to soon. And then another one is, again, I'm cheating here, I don't have it yet, but I want to order it. The Way of Adan by Philip Chase, I read last year, and I loved it. So I don't have book 2 yet. I think it's called The Prophet of Adan, but this is one of those that really snuck up on me last year, and I find myself thinking about pretty often the characters and the events in the first book, and I really want to find out what happens in book 2 and book 3. I mean, partly because I keep seeing other booktubers pick up the series and they love it. Especially, I think book 2, people say, is a big step up from book 1, even though book 1's great. So I think I'll order that pretty soon, and I want to at least start book 2 before the end of the year. And then this is the last one, and again, I don't have it yet, but Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Muro. I don't have the sequel. I plan on getting it. Bringer of Dust is book 2. This is like my favorite book of the last 3 or 4 years. It's like horror, but like to me it kind of fits in the fantasy genre, like overall. Like there's some books that are like categorized as horror, but there's so many supernatural or fantastical elements that aren't strictly like monsters, that I kind of, in my head, I see them as fantasy or dark fantasy. And yeah, Ordinary Monsters, it's like, well, the quick pitch for me when I tell people about it is it's like a Victorian X-Men or a Victorian Stranger Things. So it's like in the Victorian era, I think. I forget the exact year that it takes place. But like these kids are called talents. They have these weird, creepy, supernatural abilities. Like I mean, you could call it body horror, because a lot of it is like some people can heal, some people their body glows with light, and they're all kind of weird things that these talents can do. And it's got really deep themes. The writing is incredible. I thought it was really well paced. Just everything about Ordinary Monsters was amazing. And book 2 I'm going to get in the next few days, Bringer of Dust. I don't know if one of my favorite characters from the first book is going to be a main character. I don't want to say too much because of spoilers, but there's somebody who can like manipulate dust, kind of like manipulate organic matter, but it just kind of, they call it dust in the book. I don't know. So I'm hoping they'll show up in book 2, but yeah, it's supposed to, man, I wish I could say more about this series, but if you haven't read book 1, I don't want to say too much. I mean, there are different settings in book 2. I've read, part of it takes place in Italy, part of it takes place in, I think it says the catacombs beneath Paris. So the portrayal of, or depiction of, like Victorian London and like the American West in book 1, and a few other, like they go to Japan, or there's a flashback in Japan in book 1. Like, you can tell the author did a lot of research, and it's really grounded in the time period. But like, I'm so excited about this series. I think it's a trilogy, the Talents trilogy. But yeah, Bringer of Dust by J.M. Miro, especially in October with Halloween coming up, I thought it would be a really good read. So I want to get to that soon. I guess a little bit about what I've been watching recently. Some of my favorite booktubers have been doing like monthly or weekly wrap-ups, and they just mentioned what they're watching, which I thought was cool. You know, why limit it to books? So my fiance and I have been watching Rings of Power season 2, and we love it. I'm obsessed with it. Season 1 was super fun. I know a lot of people didn't like it, especially if you're like a Tolkien super nerd or whatever, but to me it was just pure fun, and it was like, the cinematography is amazing. A lot of the actors I really like, especially like Elrond and the wizard guy. I won't spoil anything, but the guy who falls from the stars and is kind of paired up with the hobbits. Like, those actors are just so compelling to watch, and they like handle mysteries really well. You're trying to guess in season 1, like who's gonna be Sauron and who's gonna be Gandalf and who's gonna be, like, it's I mean, that's really fun. And yeah, just, I love that show. I don't know why people didn't like it as much. I know it plays with like the mythology and the timeline of whatever's in the Silmarillion or the appendices of Lord of the Rings or the published lore, but I had a lot of fun watching it, and season 2 is incredible. Especially Celebrimbor. Like, if you know, you know. The actor is killing it. He's, in the lore, I guess he's like one of the great smiths that forged the rings and is like manipulated by Sauron. Anyway, I hope that's not spoilers because it's in the lore, but his storyline is incredible. And yeah, Elrond, the guy who plays Elrond, is so cool and so just compelling to watch. Like, he has charisma and chemistry with everybody that he interacts with. So those are probably my favorite characters. But I mean, there's just a big battle scene in episode 7 So I'm getting like my fantasy movie TV show fix from that. And then another one that we're watching is Only Murders in the Building season 4. It's just a fun little like whodunit mystery show on Hulu with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and I think Selena Gomez. So that's been super fun. I think that's it, really. I mean, we're watching some silly shows like The Circle and whatever that are really fun. But that's what I've been watching. That's what I've been reading. So yeah, I guess if you've watched this and you have any thoughts or opinions about which of these series I should continue in October, I won't be able to get to all of them. So if you have any favorites out of the Adan trilogy by Philip Chase, the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, or the Talents trilogy by J.M. Muro, let me know, and maybe I'll like prioritize that based on who's watching and commenting on videos. And then I guess the last little bit I'll talk about is what I plan on doing with the channel. I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'm trying to put out at least one video a week. I'm just trying to find the right time to do it and the right type of videos that I want to make, because yeah, again, last year I had kind of a false start, and I got caught up in trying to do as many videos as I could and do monthly TBRs and stick to them and join read-alongs and readathons that didn't end up being as enjoyable as I thought they were going to be for different reasons. So I'm not trying to be strict with myself and read more than I'm able to, but I do want to interact with the community, and I want to get back to reading fantasy on a regular basis and interacting with people. I've started, commenting more on people's channels and videos just because it's fun, and I have some things I want to say, or I want to like encourage people channels that I really like. A big shout out, like Talking Story is kind of put me in the right mindset to start making videos again. John Minton and his son Jacob, just the way they've interacted with their community and really built a community, like the way they rolled out their Patreon, what they're doing with that, I thought was really engaging and different. Like giving people a voice in the community was really compelling to me, and just felt good. And then I've seen some people in their communities like start up channels within the last few months, and it kind of encouraged me to start making videos again of my own. So yeah, I know I'm rambling, but I think I'll do at least, the obvious monthly wrap-ups, and I might just throw a little TBRs in for the next month in there, whether I stick to it or not. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas of what kind of videos you would like to see, like weekly wrap-ups, I want to start reading more comics, so if you have any comic book recommendations, I know I'm just throwing that in there at the last minute. But yeah, what would you like to see? I'm trying to interact with people more, because there's just so many cool, interesting, and kind people on BookTube, not just content creators, but people in the community who just are viewers and interact. So yeah, if you have any ideas, let me know what you think, what kind of videos you like. But yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm gonna try to get better. I know I'm terrible at keeping eye contact with the camera, but that's just anxiety. I have trouble with that in real life. And I don't know, looking around helps me think. But yeah, if you've watched this whole video, thank you, and like, subscribe. Really, I'm still working out the kinks of this, so I'm not really worried about growing a lot of my channel or whatever too quickly. Really, I like interacting with people in the comments, so if you have any thoughts on anything I talked about in the video, let me know. And yeah, any thoughts you have about the channel. And now I'm just repeating myself, so I'm gonna end this video. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll try to make another video soon.